This one book changed my man Luke's life here. Welcome in fam Trav here.
What's up?
What's up? And we're in Maui, walking back from Jaws. We just seen 20-foot waves crashing.
Massive swells.
Massive swells. We're talking about perspective and how you can take responsibility for your own happiness. So I was asking Luke what he learned, and he said, hey, there was one book that changed my life. So tell us, what was that? What did you learn?
Yeah, so the book, give everyone an information. Book, Zen, The Art of Happiness.
Zen, The Art of Happiness.
It's by a Zen master, but he grew up in the West, and then he came into Eastern ideas later. And so, I think if we're watching this and we're from a Western audience,
Yeah.
we can kind of relate.
Yeah.
And the book starts out really slow, so a lot of these things you might be like, I already know this.
I already know how to be happy.
Yeah, but get into it, because by the time I finished, I hated it at first. I was like, this is so obvious. I don't need to read obvious things.
Yeah.
But then by the time I finished it, it really did adjust my perspective and help me focus in on having the Zen perspective and learning how to create every event as a positive situation. So just to kind of summarize a couple of the main points, right? Like, perspective is everything.
Perspective is everything.
So if you think something's gonna suck, it's gonna suck.
Yeah.
If you think something's gonna be awesome, it's gonna be awesome.
Oftentimes, if you think you can't, you're right. Right.
Yeah.
If you think you can. So what was that story? You can omit the names, but you're talking about.
Yeah, so I had this friend in college, and he didn't like one of the guys that was in the friend group. They just, had contrasting personalities, contrasting values. And so every time...
One of them's more introverted nature. The other one's
Yeah.
more extroverted status, sort of a...
Yeah.
Right.
So, my two friends, one of them, he would always kind of have this negative, like, oh, if this guy shows up, it's going to suck, it's going to ruin it.
Because he's going to
right?
take his shirt off, he's going to be pounding beers and pumping his fist, turning on some techno music.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. Didn't drink until I was 21, so it
Okay.
depends. But yeah, so the point is that my friend came to this realization by the end of the year that he was the one making the events negative for
Right.
himself by setting up these preconceived notions, right? Like, if you don't like Megan because Megan sucks, right? And every time Megan's around,
Megan.
you're just like unhappy. That's more a reflection on you than on her.
Here, I'm going to switch
Like,
sides. It's
You're
not
the
on
one
Megan, it's on you.
controlling if you feel unhappy, you're happy. And that's a little bit about what Zen is that your happiness, your perspective of whatever is going on is internal, and you can
Yup.
control it. So by giving an outside person
Control over
control
your emotions.
over your happiness is a weakness,
Yeah.
and it doesn't create positive outcomes, and it will make you enjoy life less.
Yeah.
And so taking control over your perspective is a huge thing.
Right. So you can take, there's two different pieces of advice I hear. Take control of your perspective. A lot of people say take control of your environment. You got to toss out the negative people, kick out the haters.
Yeah.
The reality is you don't always have that much control unless you want to go be an island, right? Like, you have an organization. Generally, you're not going to have full control. You can just kick someone out because you don't like them, and you shouldn't even have that anyways. Like, it's one thing that I've learned, because I've chosen to live in community, right?
Yep.
Occasionally I don't like one of the people, but then if I let that ruin my experience, that's totally on me, right? That's not on them.
Yeah, same can be said for a boss you don't like, right? If you adjust your perspective and take control back of your own happiness,
Yeah.
you'll find that you can go to work and not have this person bother you, right?
Right.
Because I think the secret to it is knowing that everything everything's working in perfect harmony.
Yep.
And this is a viewpoint, right? You don't need to choose to believe this. But if you
Yep.
choose to believe that everything is perfect and working in harmony, then you know that every trial you go through, every down period, everything that seems annoying or hard or frustrating is just there to help you grow, help you as a
Yep.
person, give you perspective, right? And it's like, if you don't know, like one of the examples in the book, Zen, The Art of Happiness, is a house gets built.
Yep. Take care.
A house gets built next to your house, and it's 2 stories, right? So they can look into your yard, and you're thinking to yourself, you're like, God, like, what asshole would build a house that can see into me, right?
Yep.
I think everyone would be pretty unhappy about that.
Yeah.
But then, if you knew that the house was being built by a mysterious admirer who wanted to build you a bigger house, then you'd be like, whoa, right?
Yep.
And it seems silly, but the point is that your perspective on the house, right, is what's affecting your view of the situation. You know, if you thought the house was going to be this really cool dude who was going to invite you to a bunch of dinners, then you'd be happy about it.
Right.
And if it was going to be someone really lame who's going to play a bunch of loud music late at night, like,
Yeah.
you'd be upset. But that's your perspective changing your
Yes.
happiness. Whereas
Yeah.
the point of Zen is to always maintain your happiness internal.
Right? It's all about the stories that we tell ourselves. Like, here's a real common one everybody can relate to. You send a message, you send an email, it doesn't get responded to, right? And I think people will assume, like, oh, this person doesn't like me, or they're ignoring me, or they're, you know, whatever story that you tell. And then you could even take that story, people take that story further and say, I'm not worthy. You know, I'm not that cool, or I'm not that. But you could tell a different story of just like, you know, they're gonna get back to you. They didn't see it. They're thinking about it. They don't know what to say. They got other shit going on, and it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. Or maybe they're just a flaky person who doesn't respond to shit, and that has everything to do with them and nothing to do with you, right? And then you have compassion for them, right? Instead of being mad at this person, it's like you have compassion for that person. So I think that's something that's really helped is sort of changing my story of how the world interacts with me, and going back and having more compassion for the world, and just assuming the best from people and things. And most of the time I see the best, you know. Don't get stolen from, don't get taken advantage of.
Yeah, and even when you do get stolen or taken advantage from, it's like, okay, why did that happen? And taking ownership of that situation and using it as a valuable learning lesson. You know, like, any situation can have a positive spin if you
Right?
realize that you grew from it, or if, you know.
Yeah. Maybe something actually bad happens, but instead of blaming the outside world, you take responsibility and say, hey, I learned, and I won't put myself in that situation again, right? Yeah. So Zen and the Art of Happiness, y'all should go on Amazon and get that book.
Very short book. I think it's only 10 chapters. They're all to the point.
And you're gonna learn.
And keep in mind, it's just a mindset. It's not, it doesn't actually mean that the world's working in perfect harmony, that everything, but if you choose to believe that way,
Right.
it can profoundly affect
Yeah.
how you live the rest of your life.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I mean, later as I grew older, when I was younger, I was like, God's not real, fake, there's no evidence. But then as I started to believe in God, it wasn't because there was evidence, it was because it was useful and helpful. And I've seen like, the blue zones, the longest lived people believe in God. Faith has the placebo effect is super strong. It's like a functional belief, right? So, you know, the stories that you tell yourself, you don't know if it's real either way, right? So why not choose a story that's in your favor, right?
Yeah, choose something that can benefit you. You know, you got to set your view on life, and choosing one that makes you think positively is is much better than taking
Yeah.
a life stance that has a negative view.
You have to choose. Okay. So if you found that useful, how are they gonna find you, Luke?
You can hit me up on the Facebooks.
Okay.
Look up Matson LP.
Matson LP.
I'm out there.
Okay. Yeah, hope you found that useful. Appreciate you. Holler in the comments down below. Let me know what you think, what you want to hear more of. So, thank you.
Peace.
Peace.